Mrs. Johnston here. It is time for knowledge and social studies. We are on our last unit, number 12, Presidents and American Symbols. What do you see in this picture? Did you say the flag or an American flag? This is the American flag, and you are going to hear more about this important American symbol in this domain. Do you recognize the man in this picture? Some of you might have said an old man, a president. This man is George Washington, who was the first president of the United States. He lived long ago. He lived in the capital of the United States, which is Washington, D.C. It is named after George Washington. The capital is the city in the United States where the most of the decisions that affect the country are made and where the government is located. Can you name the current president? Did you say the current president is Joe Biden? The current president lives in Washington, D.C. Does anybody know what this image is a picture of? Or can you recognize this building? Did you say a White House? Well, this is actually the White House. It is the building in which the president lives while he or she is president. What structure is this? Or what building? This building is the U.S. Capitol building. And how about our last image? Let's get this flipped so you can see. Does anybody know what this building is? It is called the Washington Monument. These structures are also located in Washington, D.C. We learned about kings and queens in their unit. Let's review what we know about kings and queens as well as kingdoms. What is a king? A king is a male ruler of a kingdom. What is a queen? A queen is a female ruler of a kingdom. What is a kingdom? A kingdom is the place and people ruled by a king or a queen. Where does the king or queen live? A king and queen live in a palace or castle. Once a person is a king or queen, how long does she or he remain in that position? She or he, the king or queen, rule for the rest of his or her life. Is the king or queen elected or chosen by the people? No, he or she is born into that position. Now, after we learned about kings and queens, we learned about the Pilgrims and that they came from England and landed at Plymouth Rock along the coast of North America. Do you remember why the Pilgrims chose to leave England and go to America? The Pilgrims wanted to go to their own church, but the king said that they had to go to the Church of England. The Pilgrims decided to leave so they could be happier and worship as they wanted. There are still kingdoms today, but there are many more kingdoms long ago. Our country, the United States of America, is not a kingdom. Do we have a king? No. Do you know what we call the leader of our country? We call the leader of our country the president. Our country's form of government is a democracy. Democracy means ruled by the people. So, what do you think our president does if the country is ruled by the people? Today, you are going to hear a read aloud about what the President of the United States does and about the home of the President in Washington, D.C. Over the next few weeks, you will also learn about several important United States presidents and how these men helped to shape our country. Give Mrs. Johnston thumbs up if you think the answer to this question is yes. Give me thumbs down if you think the answer to this question is no. Is the leader of the United States of America a king? Did you give Mrs. Johnston thumbs down? The leader of the United States of America is not a king. Is the leader of the United States a president? Thumbs up. Yes. Does the leader of the United States live in a castle? Thumbs down. No, they do not. Does the leader of the United States live in the White House? Thumbs up. That answer is yes. Listen for details about Washington, D.C. and the different buildings and monuments found in the city. Listen carefully to find out how the president of our democracy is different from a king. The American flag is a symbol of our nation, the United States of America. A symbol is a picture or object that represents a word or idea. A nation is a country. You can see that the flag is red, white, and blue. You can see that it has red and white stripes. It also has 50 stars, and each star is a symbol for one of the states in the United States of America. Can you name the state in which you live? Did you all say Michigan? What other states have you heard of? Your answers may have varied quite a lot. There is one very important city in the United States that is not in any of the 50 states. In fact, it is the nation's capital. It is the city where most of the decisions that affect our country are made and where the government is located. Our nation's capital city is the part of the United States where the President of the United States lives, Washington, D.C. The President is the elected leader of our country. This means that the President was chosen by the people of our nation. Men from each of the original colonies helped write the Constitution, a plan for how the new country should be run. We call these men the Founding Fathers. The Founding Fathers decided they wanted the country to be run by a president instead of a king. Once a person is Once a person is king or queen, he or she remains in that position for the rest of his or her life. He or she is not elected by the people and might not represent the interests of the people. The founding fathers didn't want one person to tell everyone what to do, as a king does. Instead, they wanted a leader who would listen to what the people wanted and work hard to get them what they needed. To make sure that the president didn't become like a king, they decided to write the Constitution, a set of rules for the president to follow. They also decided that the president would have to be elected by the people. The president would not be born into the position like a king is, and he could only be a president for 4 years before the people would vote for a president again. What do you see in this picture? A big building. This picture shows what the White House looked like long ago. When the founding fathers started to think about where the president would live, they started to worry. If the president lived in the state he was from, it would make that state feel more important than all the others. The founding fathers were afraid that one of the states would try to take over and be in charge of the others. They decided to write into the Constitution that a special city should be built, no bigger than 10 miles wide, which would serve as the nation's capital. This capital city would not be in any state, so no one state could say that it was in charge of the country. This city was to be called Washington, in honor of George Washington, our first president. Eventually, Washington grew into the area we now call the District of Columbia, or Washington, D.C. Who was Washington, D.C. named for? The first president, George Washington. If you visited Washington, D.C. today, you would be able to see the White House, the house where the president lives. The president moves into this house when he or she becomes president. and then moves out when the next president is elected. But not just presidents live there, their families and even their pets come with them to live in the White House. Have you ever seen a picture of this dog? His name is Bo, and he lives with President Barack Obama and his family. You will hear more about President Obama in a later read aloud. When President Obama was first chosen to be our president in 2008, he promised his daughters they could get a dog to live with them in the White House. Bo moved into the White House about 3 months after President Obama and his family moved there. And one of his favorite activities is playing outside with President Obama's daughters. The president doesn't just live in the White House. He or she works there too. The part of the White House where the president works is called the West Wing. The president's office has a special name too, the Oval Office. Sometimes the president signs laws or gives speeches from the Oval Office. One of the president's most important jobs is to enforce the rules of the Constitution. To enforce the rules means to make sure the rules are followed. The president doesn't run the government alone as a king would. The government is made up of a team of 3 groups: the president, Congress, and the Supreme Court. The founding fathers made sure that all 3, the president, the Congress, and the Supreme Court, had equally important jobs so that the president didn't hold all the power like a king, and so that people's liberties would be protected. Liberties are freedoms. Remember, the Pilgrims left England because they didn't have an important liberty. Which liberty or freedom did the Pilgrims not have? The liberty to choose which church to attend. Because so many of our past presidents have lived in Washington, D.C., it is also a place where people often build statues and other buildings to honor them. These statues and other buildings are called monuments. If you visited Washington, D.C., you would find many monuments to past presidents. One famous monument is called the Lincoln Memorial. Another famous monument is the Jefferson Memorial. These monuments are symbols to remind us how important these past presidents were in our nation. The Washington Monument is one of many people's favorite monuments to visit in Washington, D.C. It is the world's tallest stone building. When you go to the top of the tower, you can see all of Washington, D.C., but you don't have to go to Washington, D.C. to appreciate our country and its leaders. Every time you say the Pledge of Allegiance or sing the national anthem, you can let everyone around you know that you are proud to be part of our country. Let's say the Pledge of Allegiance together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next time you see the American flag, remember that our 50 states all share a belief in liberty and justice, or freedom and fairness for everyone. And remember that these United States of America all share the same government, which is led by the President, the Congress, and the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. What is a president? The elected leader of a country. Where does the president live? The White House in Washington, D.C. Who were the founding fathers? The people who helped to create our nation. What is this? It is the American flag. The 50 stars are symbols of something. What do they represent? They represent the 50 states of the United States of America. What city is the capital of our country? Washington, D.C. is the capital of our country. In which state is Washington, D.C. located? It is not located in any of the states. Name three things you have learned about Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is where the president lives. It's where Congress is located. It's one place where monuments of past presidents can be found. It is not located in a state, and it was named after George Washington. What are the names of the three parts of the government that work together to protect people's liberties or freedoms? The three parts of the government are the President, Congress, and the Supreme Court. Who is currently the President of the United States? The current President of the United States is Joe Biden. Mrs. Johnston hopes that you enjoyed our very first lesson, the home of the president, Washington, D.C., as we start our last unit on presidents and American symbols.